Hello, explorers. Tonight our pages flip to La Llorona, a ghostly mother whose regrets keep her haunting the material world. If you enjoyed tonight, we hope you might also be pleased tomorrow night with our previous work on the Chupacabra. Remember that these stories are fiction and are only based on historical folklore. Feel free to comment what you might already know about tonight's topic and how you learned it. We're very glad to have you here. On to our Mexican folklore story. The riverlands are quiet in the hour after dusk, when the sun's last fire is gone, but the air still holds its heat. A farmer walks home along the narrow trail that threads beside the Rio Lerma, his bare feet pressing dust into prints that fade under the dim starlight. He carries his machete close at his side, not out of fear, but because every man keeps his blade close when moving between field and home. The earth smells of damp reeds and ash, for the neighbors have burned piles of cornstalk to clear the soil, and the smoke drifts low, caught in the evening air. To his left, the river is swollen from summer rains, its surface restless though no breeze stirs. The people of his village always warn that swollen waters make spirits bold, for rivers remember the drowned. Every bend of the Lerma holds some tale, voices carried at night, children lured close, women seen kneeling in wet grass, though none lived nearby. These warnings are folded into his thoughts like the rosary beads in his pocket, ordinary but never far. The path cuts through fields of maize, their stalks tall and rough, leaves snapping as the wind changes direction. His family has worked these plots for generations, though the boundaries of who truly owns the land shift with officials and papers carried from towns. Still, here at night, those things feel distant. What matters is the earth beneath his feet and the way the river pulls at the edges of every field, gnawing like an animal that never tires. From time to time, he pauses to listen. Dogs in the village bark, then fall silent, their voices cut short as though something had stepped into view. Across the river, frogs hum in a steady chorus, and every so often one croak falls out of rhythm. These small fractures in the sound of the land make the hair on his forearm stand up. He thinks of his grandfather's warning. Never walk by the water without a prayer on your lips, for the night belongs to more than men. The lantern he carries swings on its handle, light spilling in uneven circles. Moths strike its glass, wings catching fire in bursts of sparks before falling. He mutters a quick blessing, crossing himself as the smell of scorched wings joins the river's damp odor. He wonders if his wife has already finished setting the table, with beans simmering in lard and tortillas wrapped in a cloth to keep them warm. The thought keeps him moving, but he doesn't let the trail pull him too near the water's edge. The stars above are bright, scattered like grains of salt across black stone, but when reflected on the river they blur, as though mist hangs too low. He stops at one bend where the soil dips. The ground is soft, and when he kneels to test it, his fingers press into waterlogged clay. There are tracks there, bare, small, leading towards the reeds. He follows them with his eyes until they vanish into darkness. Children sometimes play here by day, but none should be out this late. He stands, heartbeat quickening, and adjusts the grip in his machete. A whisper of reeds moving comes from the river, though no current should reach them. He steadies himself, reminds his mind that water carries many sounds. The sounds of rivers can fool men who don't know better. And yet every man in his village knows the stories of the weeping woman. She has been heard from Sonora to Chiapas, where rivers run. La Llorona, they call her, the crying one. Some say she's the soul of a woman who drowned her children. Others say she's a spirit of the water itself, luring the living to join the lost. Either way, her presence is always near water, and her voice always breaks the night. He shakes himself and moves faster, not running, but eager for the sight of his adobe house rising from the field's edge. Their fence lanterns highlight rows of meat strips drying on racks, and the rough wall of stone his father laid long before. Home is close now. The river noise fades a little, softened by distance, but he doesn't forget it. He knows he will mention the tracks to his wife, and perhaps she will whisper them to her sister, and by morning the story will travel through the village. Before he steps inside, he looks back once more towards the river. The reeds shift again, though the air is still. His breath catches, and he senses that he was not alone by the water, and that the darkness waits with more than frogs and insects. Then he closes the door behind him, the wooden latch sliding into place with a heavy sound. Night settles deeper over the village, and the farmer listens from inside his adobe home. The walls keep the last heat of the cook fire, and the lantern on its nail throws a small, steady circle of light across the room. His wife stacks tortillas under a folded cloth. The beans rest in a clay bowl that still bubbles at the edges. Their children grow drowsy with the comfort of the food in their belly and the smell of wood smoke. Even here, though, a thin alertness stretches across the night like a tightrope drawn from door to river. He hears water when he should not. A glazed jar sits on the table, full to its neck. No one touches it, yet the surface trembles as if a fingertip writes little circles in the shine. He looks to the doorway. No wind is moving the curtain. The river outside has its own restless voice, but this small shaking feels separate, like something far away is calling to the jar through the air. He cups the mouth of the jar with his hand. The ripples continue, slowly, but then vanish. Their dog begins barking, one at their gate and another answers from a neighbor's yard. These are not ordinary call and answer sounds that follow a passerby. Each bark climbs, breaks off, and dies mid-note, like a word clipped by a hand on the mouth. From the porch the farmer sees ears laid flat, tails low and shoulders hunched. Each dog keeps looking towards the river, then they snap their heads away. Inside, his wife makes the sign of the cross and reaches for a pinch of salt. She keeps a small cup near the door during the rains. Grandmothers say salt marks a line the dead prefer not to cross. She ties a red thread around their baby's wrist. In many houses, a red thread hangs from a crib or a doorway. Elders also say it protects against negative energy which could enter the vulnerable babies. They eat quietly by the fire. He tells her about the footprints at the bend. Small, bare, sunk in wet clay. She stops, her head tilted, listening the way a mother listens for a cry upstairs. She says others mentioned the water sounding wrong tonight. One of her cousins swore the canal behind her kitchen was breathing in and out. The shopkeeper in the plaza said he heard soft crying behind the churchyard, but found no one standing there, not even sad drunks. News moves fast along the river. A mule driver arrives from upstream and repeats a story of hearing shuffling reeds when it was windless. A boy went missing at dusk and turned up at midnight under a mesquite, and he claims a woman's hand had pulled him into the water, but his clothes were bone dry. His sandals were placed neatly side by side, as if he had taken them off before visiting someone's house. The farmer's wife brings down a bottle kept from Easter. It holds water from the church font, saved for nights like this. Above the door hangs a small cross plaited from Palm Sunday fronds, now brown as old straw. The farmer dips a finger and touches each child's forehead. He speaks St. Michael's prayer soft enough that each word stays whole. His grandmother used to begin that prayer every time the wind shifted toward the river after dark. They add other small steps that calm their hearts. The wife sweeps the corners with a bunch of albahaca and sets a coal on a pottery shard with a pinch of copal. The smoke climbs sweet and clean. Elders say the scent reminds unsettled things of daylight and church bells. The farmer lays a smooth river stone on the threshold, wet side up, so any visitor must step over the river before crossing into the house. His grandfather would slide a pair of scissors under a pillow, blades closed and touching, to cut bad dreams. Outside, a thin haze hangs above the lane. Windows glow in low squares. A girl hums while her mother claps dough, soft slaps in an easy rhythm. A radio far off scratches through a ranchera and then fades as if a careful hand turned the knob down. The church light blurs at its edges. Moths collect under the eaves and bat their wings against the wood. The first crying comes like the sound of water boiling, just under being heard. It drifts from the direction of the bend, a thin, even thread that doesn't hitch like a human chest. He stands in the doorway and counts the spaces between the sobs. They're too regular, like steps on a stairway. He does not speak the name that sits on his tongue, but he knows it and he feels it on his skin. He calls to his neighbor across the lane. The man steps into the light, still chewing, napkin in his hand. They stand and listen together. The neighbor says he went to draw water and watched the basin slosh itself clean, no hand on it. He put a lid on and still ended soaked to the knees. The lids on the kitchen pots rattled, no wind blew. Then he doesn't want to say any more. The farmer hears that same cut-off tone in the man's voice that lived in the dog's throats earlier. Children in the street go quiet. Someone tells them indoors with a firm, ordinary voice, the kind used for chores. A woman sprinkles a line of salt at her threshold and slides a chili under the mat because her mother taught her that bitterness turns unwelcome mouths aside. Another family flips a mirror face down on the table. Mirrors invite looking. The crying fades and then returns like a tide. The men try to talk about the new ditch, about the price of corn in town, about the truck that broke its axle near the wash. Yet every few moments they stop mid-sentence, pulled back to listening. The frogs sing and then fall silent in a smooth wave. The farmer tells himself he will take the longer path in morning light, keeping to the canal road and away from the river bend. An aunt passes with a rosary wrapped around her palm. She says loud cries can mean far and soft cries can mean near. After all, near water, distance plays tricks. Sound rides the skin of the river like a road. A voice upstream can walk into your ear as if it stood behind you. She touches the lintel, leaves a breath of anise from a candy she keeps for nerves, and moves on. The farmer returns inside. The children sleep with ankles crossed under the same blanket. His wife is breathing slowly and heavily. He lowers the lantern flame and sits by the door with a machete across his knees. He does not pretend his blade will solve their problem. He just keeps it because it's a bright daytime thing and holding it steadies his hands. When the crying returns, it's closer. It comes as one clean sob that hangs in the doorway like a thread of cold. The lantern flame pulls towards the door and then straightens. The jar sings a thin glass note and then falls quiet. The farmer's skin tightens, and he feels damp, the way you would after stepping out of a river still trying to dry off. He does not rise, he just counts slowly in his head. 1, 2, 3. Another sob on the same beat. A breeze crosses the room, though no window stands open. It smells of water and crushed river grass. The smooth stone on the threshold chills the ball of his foot. Outside, the reeds rub together with a dry whisper that's not really dry at all. In the hush that follows, the house holds its breath with him, while the night leans in to listen for his response. The houses along the lane glow faint with lamplight, and in each doorway people linger longer than usual. The day's work is done, but the village does not turn in. Fear has its own way of binding neighbors together, and tonight that bond is stronger than any sleep or desire for it. The farmer takes his seat near the fire, while the room fills with voices. Cousins, uncles, neighbors who stop on their way past. The children gather at the edges, pretending to play while listening to every word. The talk turns quickly towards her. Everyone has a way of beginning that avoids her name. The one by the river, the crying woman, the señora who walks at night. Words circle her without landing on it. A man with silver hair remembers a night 30 years past, when he crossed the canal road and heard crying that seemed to move in a circle around him, though he stood still. He ran to the nearest house, and when he arrived, the knees of his trousers were wet, though he had not stepped in water, and it was a bright, dry day. The farmer's wife tells of her aunt, who said she saw a woman kneeling by the irrigation ditch, weeping into her hands. The aunt went closer, thinking to offer to help, but the woman lifted her face, and it was pale and hollow, and the aunt swore that she could see dark circles for eyes. She fled, and though she reached home safely, the sound of crying followed her all the way down the lane. She had to burn rue and salt on her doorstep 3 nights running before the sound faded. The children lean closer, clutching each other as the adults speak. One boy asks if La Llorona takes children every time. The grandfather shakes his head and says she does not always, but she looks for them, and sometimes even a grown man can be taken if he lingers by the water. A mother adds that her own grandmother used to cover mirrors with cloth on certain nights, for mirrors might catch her reflection and let La Llorona step through. The farmer notices the children glance at the small tin mirror hung by the door, and he sees one girl's hand dart up to pull a cloth over it. The air inside the room grows thick with wood smoke and whispered recollection. Each story adds a detail that makes the figure more real. One woman says La Llorona's gown is always white, though mud-stained at the hem. Another insists she wears black when seen on feast days. A cousin says he saw her hair dripping river water, though the banks had been dry for weeks. They don't agree, but the differences don't weaken the stories. The farmer listens, noting the rhythm of their voices. The stories pass like food at a table. Each person takes a turn to pass it around. Beneath the words runs a quiet current of belief. No one claims to know exactly who she was in life. Some say she drowned her children. Others believe she lost them by accident. Whatever the truth is, for these villagers it's not about the past but about the present. On the hearth the pot crackles, and the fire throws sparks that leap and vanish. One neighbor spits into the fire, a common wording act. Another ties her shawl tighter and mutters that it's not wise to speak so much of her at once. The farmer's wife agrees, sprinkling more salt across the sill. Yet no one leaves. Fear might anchor them, but so does the comfort of being together. Alone, a man might hear weeping and falter. Among many, they feel like they have a fence raised against the night to protect them. In a corner, an old woman hums a lullaby, soft at first, then louder. The words are the kind sung to children. Dormente niño, dormete ya. She says that such songs confuse wandering souls, for they can't tell whether the voice is for the living or the dead. The children hush, watching her toothless mouth shape each note. The farmer steps outside for air, and he finds other groups gathered under the same stars. The night smells of damp earth and tortillas cooking in cloth bundles. A man kneels to chalk a small cross on his doorway with quick, steady strokes. Another sets a clay pot of glowing coals by his gate, smoke curling upwards with the scent of copal. The farmer notices the silence between each sound, the gap after a cricket's chirp, the pause before a neighbor's cough. The village is listening all at once, straining for the cry they all expect. He returns inside and the voices resume with lowered tones. Someone recalls that when La Llorona is heard, her cry can deceive. Another man swears the opposite is true, that it's as accurate as a person. No one is sure, and that uncertainty knots the stomach with fear. The farmer grips the handle of his machete tightly again. The hour grows late, but no one suggests sleep. The children curl on mats in the corner, lulled more by the murmur of adult voices than by confidence. The adults sit straighter, eyes darting to the door at each shift of wind. The farmer feels the pulse of the land beneath the stories, the weight of centuries pressed into the soil and water. Each tale is another stone in a wall. When the last story dies into silence, the only sound left is the steady breath of the sleepers. Yet outside, faint and low, after everyone has disappeared and settled, a single sob drifts across the water. It threads into the night air. The farmer feels his chest tighten again, and without words spoken, everyone in the room knows that she is real as day. The next morning brings no relief. Smoke from hearths curls against the sky, but beneath its comfort runs a current of unease. The farmer wakes before dawn to see neighbors already moving with quiet urgency. Women sweep thresholds with herbs, the green leaves darkened by dew. Men walk the lanes with machetes in hand, blades polished, though no field work waits today. Children are pulled close, their laughter trimmed to whispers. The whole village stirs like a house expecting company it doesn't want. The preparation takes many forms, some practical, others ritual. At his own door, the farmer sets a bowl of holy water carried from the church fountain, a clear line drawn across the lintel with his fingers. He does not fool himself that this alone will keep her out, but he remembers his grandmother's words. His wife knots red ribbons at each window latch, bright scraps of cloth fluttering like the wings of birds. She burns copal on the hearth, the smoke spilling sweet and sharp into every corner. In the plaza, their elders gather. Their backs are bent and their voices are soft, but their presence directs the rhythm of the day. One recalls that in his youth, his mother scattered chili water across the yard whenever weeping was heard. The bite of chili in the air stung the eyes and nose, and spirits, he claimed, turned away from that discomfort. Another old woman insists that rue branches tucked beneath pillows keep nightmares from taking root. The farmer listens, nodding, and returns home with new tasks. By mid-morning, the air carries a mixture of scents: copal, basil, garlic, and the faint sourness of chili water drying on dirt. Dogs sniff the ground with nervous intensity, whether from the strange smell in the air or the chili water in the soil. The farmer's own dog refuses to drink from the trough, its ears pressed flat as though the water is offensive. In a house down the lane, a girl clutches her doll while her mother ties a small cross of palm above the bed. Work continues. Men cut fodder, women grind maize, because to abandon routine would be to admit helplessness. But each action is laced with caution. No one lets children wander near the river. No man drinks alone after dusk. Even the bells of the church sound different today, their notes trembling in the air as though striking against an unseen hand. The farmer sharpens his machete on the stone slab, but he knows no blade can wound a ghost. It just reminds him that the world is soil and labor, and that grounds him enough to keep going. He runs his thumb along the edge, steadying himself with the small sting and rattle against his skin. In the kitchen, his wife chants as she grinds corn, her voice low and rhythmic, each word like a shield layered atop the last. When the sun climbs higher, neighbors visit one another. They compare notes on what was seen or heard the night before. Who heard the reeds? Who felt chills? Who heard cries that seemed near though the river lay far? Some claim the weeping had grown bolder, that she walks not only by the river, but through the lanes of the houses themselves. An old man swears he saw her white shape reflected in the water jar beside his bed. He woke to find the jar half empty, though the lid had not moved. By afternoon the air feels charged and heavy with expectations. Clouds gather over the fields, their bellies dark, and a soft rumble hints at rain. The farmer notices the silence of the river. Where frogs should sing, they are quiet. The crickets fall mute at intervals, and even the river itself runs quieter than usual, as though withholding its sound. The elders hold prayers in the church. People are kneeling on the worn stone, rosaries sliding through their fingers. Their local priest leads hymns, his voice echoing off adobe walls, but when the service ends, many stay behind to whisper their own words. That night, every door is barred early. Some families hang scissors crossed above doorways, others place knives under their pillows. In one house, garlic braids are hung from rafters, though the plant is usually saved for sickness, not spirits. The farmer lies awake on his own mat, listening to the quiet. The air is warm, but his skin prickles as if with cold dew. His wife beside him murmurs a prayer until her voice sinks into sleep. He keeps his eyes on the ceiling beams, tracing each crack in the wood. He tells himself that preparation is strength, that each ribbon, each prayer, each coal of copal adds weight to the wall they've built. Still, the silence outside feels too deep, as though the earth itself is holding a breath before the sob breaks through the air again. The farmer rises before dawn, lantern in hand to check his fields. The air is damp and heavy with the smell of wet earth. He moves slowly down the lane, past houses still shuttered, their thresholds lined with salt. His sandals slap the packed dirt, and each step seems louder than usual in the strange quiet. He feels as though the whole village is breathing behind him. As the bend in the river comes, the air shifts. The reeds sway, though the wind is absent. The farmers pause, and the lantern casts its small circle. There, through the reed stems, he catches sight of white fabric, pale against the darkness. It moves slowly, dragging across the wet ground. The sound reaches him next. Low, broken sobs that hang in the air. They rise and fall with unnatural rhythm, like water spilling from a tilted jar. He grips the machete at his side again, and his skin prickles, the hairs on his arm standing stiff. The weeping grows clearer. Sometimes it sounds close, as though the woman stands only a few paces away. Other times it seems far down the river, carried by the currents that play tricks. The lantern flame shudders. A breeze drifts over him, damp with the smell of riverweed and something sour like wet bread. He draws the flame closer to his chest, shielding it with his hand. The reeds part slightly and the fabric gleams once more, trailing in the shadows. His throat tightens, and for a moment he feels the pull of pity. The sound is so mournful, so broken, as if a mother has lost everything she once loved. But he nearly calls out, but the stories return to his mind. Her sorrow is bait, and answering her cry is casting a net over yourself. The ground beneath him is soft, sucking at his sandals. He glances down and sees fresh tracks pressed into the mud, bare feet, small and leading towards the riverbank. He kneels to study them, heart pounding. The prints are sharp at the edges, too fresh to be old. They end at the water's lip, where ripples break against the mud as if someone had just stepped in. He jerks his head up, lantern sweeping the reeds. For an instant he swears he sees long hair, dark and dripping, hanging over bent shoulders. Then the shape melts into the shadows, leaving only the sobbing voice. The farmer backs away slowly, each step measured. He doesn't want to run. Running would mean turning his back, and every tale warns against that. Still, his pulse thunders in his ears, and his hands shake as he grips his machete again. He mutters prayers under his breath, half-remembered verses, fragments of his grandmother's chants. His words catch in his dry throat. The crying rises once more, sharp and close, and his lantern flickers nearly out. Behind him, a splash breaks the surface of the river. He whirls in instinct, but the water is calm again, the moonlight showing nothing but restless ripples. Yet the sound echoes in his skull as though something large had risen and then sunk again. He staggers back farther from the bank, breath catching in his throat. Then the sobbing pauses suddenly, replaced by silence. The farmer forces himself to move, his legs heavy and his throat tight. The lantern casts long shadows across the dirt road. His sandals slide, mud tugging at him as if it wishes to pull him down. At last he reaches firmer ground, and the reeds fall behind him. The sobbing resumes, faint this time, almost a whisper, but he feels it follow him, threading through the air. When he returns to the village, the dogs are awake, pacing and whining low. Neighbors peek from their windows, their faces pale in the lamplight. One old man opens his door and calls softly to him, asking if he heard her. The farmer can only nod, unable to form more words. The old man crosses himself, then closes his door with a heavy thud. Inside his own house, the farmer sits on the mat, sweat cooling on his skin despite the warm night. His wife looks at him, eyes wide, but says nothing. She knows from his face what he saw. The children sleep, but their small hands twitch as though reaching for something. The farmer leans his machete against the wall and closes his eyes, and in that darkness he still hears the sobbing. Outside, the river keeps its steady rhythm, yet between each lap of water against the bank, you can hear the weeping continue. The farmer knows the time has come, for no preparations will ever silence her forever. He takes his place at the edge of the river bend, the machete handle warm in his grip, though sweat chills his skin. The lantern trembles in his hand, its glow spilling uneven light across the reeds. Then she's there. A figure rises from the dark seam of water and land. Her gown clings heavy, soaked through, its hem dragging like a net behind her. Her hair streams over her shoulders, tangled and dripping, strands sticking to the hollows of her face. Her skin gleams pale, too pale, as though it reflects moonlight that isn't there. Her eyes lift slowly, and he sees they're not eyes as he knows them, but deep hollows lit from within, glimmering as if glass lamps have been placed behind the sockets. The cry breaks forth, a sound so sharp it feels as if it cuts the air in two. It is grief poured raw, the kind that claws into bone. It rattles his chest, leaving his breath shallow. And yet beneath the despair, he feels a strange pull. It is sorrow so great that pity stirs in him automatically. For one instant he imagines stepping forward, offering words, lifting a hand to help. Then he remembers what he remembered last night. Pity is the hook, and pity is how she draws the living into her arms. The reeds bow as if under invisible hands, though the night wind is still. The river is giving off a truly sour reek now, like rot. Every frog falls silent, and the crickets cease their rhythm. Only the crying continues, echoing against his skull. The farmer steadies himself, whispering the prayer he has practiced since childhood. his lips stumbling over words. Her gown shifts, dripping steadily onto the ground, though no drop splashes where it falls. Her hands reach outward, long and pale, fingers stretched as if to grasp a child's shoulders. Her sobs catch, and with every rise of her chest, the air chills further, until he can see his own breath plume in front of his face. The lantern flame bends away from her now. She's getting closer. She drags across the ground, and he hears the scrape of stone under her bare feet. For each sob she utters, his own pulse stutters in time with it. He takes a step back, but his heel catches in mud, and the ground sucks at him, pulling at his sandals. He jerks his feet free, heart hammering in his chest. The machete feels useless now, yet he holds it higher. Her cry changes pitch. No longer the weeping of a grieving mother, it rises sharp, nearly a scream. The reeds rattle, though they stand still. His lantern extinguishes in a sudden gasp, plunging him into blackness broken only by the pale shine of her face. He smells the river now as if he stands waist-deep in it, algae and rot. He forces himself to turn and run. Her cry follows, louder now, chasing him up the bank and across the lane. His chest burns as his feet slap the hard-packed dirt, but the sobbing clings to his ears, never falling behind. The village lights flicker ahead, small squares of gold against the dark. Neighbors rush from their doors at the sound of his running, faces wide-eyed. They know from the pallor on his skin what walks behind him. He stumbles into the square among them, chest heaving, the crying still heard on the air. Women clutch their children, men grab their tools, and every dog in the lane howls at once. The farmer cannot speak, cannot point, but the silence that follows tells all. She's reached the village. The elders are giving orders as they do in any emergency. No one alone, an old man says. Bar your windows, keep the little ones at the center. A circle forms without argument or discussion. Older boys take the edge with buckets and blankets in case flames die. A neighbor pours a ring of salt. Another sets clay bowls of holy water at the corners. Small acts steady the hands that want to shake. The crying thickens like fog. It drifts from churchyard, then well, then the road towards the river. Distance means nothing. Mothers press palms to their children's ears, but some sounds get under the skin. The farmer, face strained pale, tells what he saw. The reeds bending, the white cloth dragging, everything she looked like. A dog breaks from the line, stops at the salt and whines. Others answer in a ragged chorus. A bucket rattles against a knee, a spoon rings on stone. The crying cuts across those sounds until the square feels tight like a room. The priest arrives with his stole over one shoulder and a lantern in his fist. He's not young, but his steps are quick. He leads a prayer, steady and plain. The words move with the rhythm of their work. Plant, tend, harvest, breathe in, breathe out. People answer in low voices. Between lines, a woman shakes albahaca over her children. Another holds a pair of scissors closed in her fist, blades wrapped in cloth. A hard cold pushes through the square. Flames bend and one lantern gutters out. Darkness presses close and then lifts as someone relights the wick. The farmer smells the river, though it lies far away. At the well, water sloshes as if stirred, though no one touches the rope. The bucket's iron hook creaks and people draw back. The crying is so near now. It threads between bodies, a line of sound it could be real. A boy tries to peer over shoulders, but his mother pulls him down with a firm hand. One of the midwives steps to the front and lifts a coal in a spoon. She dusts copal onto it. White smoke rises, sweet and resinous. For the unsettled, she says, for what does not belong in our doorways. Breath fogs in front of the faces that were warm a moment before. The farmer sees the edge of a gown, a strip of white swaying just beyond the light. A sob cuts the air in a clean slice. Several people step back without meaning to. Then a child cries, an ordinary sound that pulls eyes back to the living for a heartbeat. The elders hold the line steady. A grandfather begins the St. Michael prayer. Others join, overlapping softly. The midwife walks the rim, flicking drops of holy water from her fingertips. Where they fall, dust darkens in tiny beads. The farmer grips his machete across his chest. Then the crying leans towards a house at the edge. the home of a couple whose baby was born at the start of the rains. The baby stirs, sensing the change as animals do. The mother gathers the child and sets her back to the door. 3 women move to her side, shawls out, forming a soft wall. The father steps in front, his jaw tight. Everyone knows the stories. A shape crosses the doorway like a cloud over the moon. Only a moving absence, but it turns the mother's knuckles white around her child. The priest lifts his voice. The people answer louder, and the prayer fills the square like a field of bees, buzzing. The air is growing colder, and lanterns bow again. Outside the ring, water splashes once, as if a bare foot stepped into a full basin. The push forward never comes. She tests the edge and recoils as if from heat. Kapal smoke curls in thicker ropes. Someone scatters chili water in a quick arc, and its bite rides the air. The crying frays into a raw sound that is less like grief and more like anger at a door that will not open. The dogs, which had been whining, find their voices and bark sharp and fast. The minutes stretch onwards. People hold their places, shoulders touching, breaths measured. The farmer's legs tremble, but he does not shift. He watches light on dust, the slow curl of smoke, the sheen on the well's rim. He listens for steps and hears only his own pulse, thudding like a churn. At last it moves away. No one chases. They keep the last lines going until the words become a steady drone. The cold lifts as if someone opened a door into summer. The flames rise straighter. A baby sighs and falls asleep. No cheer rises. The relief is quiet. The priest lowers his lantern. The midwife cups her coal to smother it. The salt ring lies broken where a heel scuffed it. A boy kneels to repair the line with careful pinches. People return to their houses in small groups, placing hands on one another's backs as they pass. The farmer stands longer, hands open and off his machete at last. When he finally turns towards home, small details come clear. The chalky scrape where a bucket fell, dew silvering a bench, a ribbon of kapal ash on the stones. Behind doors, low voices murmur. Somewhere a pot lid taps twice and then is still. In his house, the children sleep tangled together, the red thread bright against a wrist. His wife touches his cheek and nods towards the window latch, where the ribbon flutters in a small stubborn arc. He sets his machete down again and sits with his back to the wall. Outside, the dogs give a last few barks and curl into their places. Morning light now spills across the rooftops, but it doesn't bring any ease. The village stirs slow, people stepping into the lanes with eyes still heavy from a night of fear. Neighbors gather in the plaza, drawn together by the need to share what each has lived through. The farmer emerges from his house with his machete at his side, not because he means to cut anything, but he's become so accustomed to holding on to it, and he feels wrong to walk barehanded after such a night. When he reaches the plaza, his neighbors are not speaking loudly. Their voices are still low, as if too much sound could invite her back. But everyone has a little piece to add. One woman says she found wet footprints across her yard though no rain had fallen. Another swears her baby's cradle rocked itself though no breeze touched it. The farmer listens silent today, and he sees the way old men squint towards the river as if expecting to glimpse her gown swaying even in daylight. Children cling close to their mothers, wide-eyed, staring whenever a dog growls. Work resumes after they're done, because it must. Fields need tending, maize must be ground, the animals must be fed. But each task is marked by caution. Men don't walk to the river alone anymore. Women keep children inside after dusk, and at every house small protections remain. Bowls of holy water, red ribbons, covered mirrors. At dusk, prayers rise again in the church, though not as loud as the night before. The priest speaks softly, reminding the people that water holds more than fish and reeds. His words are plain, meant to guide. Guard your families and respect the unseen. The farmer walks home under the last light, the path lined with reeds shifting in a faint breeze. He keeps his eyes from the water, though the sound of its flow presses close. He remembers her hollow face and the cry that rattled his bones. When he gets back, in the quiet of his home, he watches his children settle into sleep again. His wife hums softly as she folds the tortillas into cloth for tomorrow. He realizes that what holds her back is not steel, but the shared weight of belief between the villagers. The prayers, the smoke, the stories passed from mouth to mouth. He steps behind his wife and wraps his arms around her gently. She hums lightly and leans against him, taking comfort in each other. The village has faced her, and though no one claims victory, they've survived. They know the river will always belong to her as much as it does to them. The night deepens, and the farmer lies awake next to his sleeping wife. From far off, he thinks he hears water shift against stone, but he closes his eyes, grips the rosary at his side, and lets the sound pass. The story of La Llorona lingers in the mind not just because of her haunting cries, but because of what those cries have taught the people who live along rivers. Belief is both a shield and an anchor, reminding people that the world is shared with forces older than land deeds and stronger than stone walls. La Llorona's cries remind people to respect their land and respect their customs, and to keep their family close, for in the darkest moments, that's the only strength anyone truly has. The mother wakes before the sun rises. Her bare feet touch the cool clay floor of her small adobe home. The air is still dark and quiet, with only a few soft sounds from the outside world. She lights a small fire under the comal, a flat clay griddle that she uses to cook tortillas. The crackle of the mesquite wood fills the still air. The smell of the smoke mixes with the dampness of dawn, carrying a warmth that makes the home feel alive again. Her courtyard is simple but full of signs of daily life. There are clay pots against the walls, darkened from years of use, and chickens pecking at the ground. A clay water jar rests on a wooden stool, always kept full. The earth smells like wet soil mixed with cornmeal, a scent that belongs to the home itself. For her, mornings are not only about preparing food, they're about keeping balance in the house. She learned long ago from her mother that each task done with care ties the family together. She kneels in front of the metate, the grinding stone passed down through her family. She begins to grind the corn, pressing the smooth stone back and forth with steady rhythm. The soft scraping sound fills the quiet house. Her movements are slow and even, guided by memory. Soon a pale dough gathers under her hands. She shapes it gently into small balls and presses them flat for cooking. The first tortilla puffs on the comal, releasing a smell of warmth and smoke that fills the air. Above her, bundles of dried herbs, like epazote, oregano, and ruda, hang from the rafters. They are used for both cooking and healing, and their faint aroma mixes with the fire smoke. She remembers her mother's voice telling her never to eat the first tortilla. It's for the household spirits who protect the home. Quietly, she sets it aside near the fire, as a form of gratitude. When the first light of morning touches the sky, she takes her broom made of dried palm leaves and begins to sweep the courtyard. The rustling sound is steady and calm. Dust rises softly in the air and catches the early light. In many villages, sweeping at dawn is seen as a blessing for the day. It clears away the night's energy and welcomes peace into the home. She hasn't yet explained this to her children, but she knows they're learning simply by watching her. From beyond the adobe walls, a rooster crows. A few dogs bark in the distance. The sound of other fires lighting up fills the air. Across the neighborhood, other mothers are beginning their days too, repeating the same quiet work. There's comfort in knowing everyone moves in rhythm together. Her eldest daughter appears in the doorway, still sleepy and rubbing her eyes. The mother smiles but says nothing, simply motioning for her to sit at a table where a folded napkin covers a small bowl of beans. The girl eats quietly, watching her mother work. In this home, lessons begin in silence. The children learn by seeing. Soon the younger children wake. The courtyard grows lively with voices, a little bit of laughter, and the shuffle of their small feet. The mother moves among them easily. She braids her daughter's hair, wipes her son's face, and ties their sandals with steady hands. She does not rush them, even though there's always more work to do. Her voice remains soft but firm, guiding them with calm gestures. When one child helps another, she notices but does not make a show of it. She just smiles. The morning becomes fuller. A neighbor calls from over the wall, and the mother answers warmly without stopping her work. In small villages, voices often travel this way, house to house, creating a rhythm of shared living. A pot of stew might be passed across the wall to another family without even asking. People help one another not for reward, but because kindness keeps them strong. Light filters through the cactus fence, painting moving lines on the courtyard floor. Her youngest child laughs while watching dust float in the sunlight like tiny stars. The mother pauses, watching too. She takes joy in these little moments. By mid-morning, she walks to the back of the courtyard where a clay basin is filled with water collected the night before. She dips her hands into it and splashes her face. The water is cold and clean. Her children join her, imitating her careful motions. She teaches them not to waste it. In dry seasons, water is precious. She begins to prepare for the day's errands. A woven basket sits by the door, repaired many times but still sturdy. She fills it with tortillas wrapped in cloth, a jar of beans, and a pouch of salt. Her eldest daughter carries a folded shawl. The children see this not as chores, but just a part of life. The mother steps to the center of the courtyard. She sprinkles a few drops of water on the earth, another old gesture taught by her grandmother. It's a simple way to greet the land and show respect to the spirits. The sun climbs higher, turning the clay walls golden. The sound of life grows stronger. Doors are opening, donkeys are braying, people are calling out down the road. Outside, the dirt road glows under the rising sun. Around them, the world begins to move faster, but for this mother, the true heart of her day has already happened. The sun is already high when the family finishes breakfast. Their courtyard smells of warm corn, bean stew, and the faint sweetness of wood smoke. The mother wipes her hands on her apron and looks around her home, making sure everything is in order before the next part of the day begins. The children sit close to this clay stove, their faces lit slightly by its orange glow. This is an hour where she teaches them through the slow rhythm of shared living. The clay stove, or fogon, has stood in that corner since before her oldest child was born. Its sides are dark from years of fire, and its shape is slightly uneven, molded by hand. She keeps it clean and always leaves a bit of ash for good luck, a habit her own mother followed. Around it she stores her tools, a small ladle made from dried gourd, a few earthen pots, and the stone metate resting nearby. Everything in this corner has its purpose. In many homes like hers, the fogon is the heart of the house, the place where stories, food, and warmth are shared. The children sit on low stools. Her youngest plays with a small clay bowl, pretending to mix something inside. The mother smiles, recognizing the imitation of herself in that act. She begins to speak softly as she kneads fresh dough, her hands pressing and folding the masa with calm rhythm. "Who works with care, eats with peace," she says, half to herself. The children look up, recognizing another of her sayings. In her village, these sayings, dichos, are more than decoration. They are everyday tools for teaching. Despacio se llega lejos, she continues. You reach far by going slowly. Her children repeat it quietly, trying to remember. The words are simple to them, but they carry more weight than they appear to. Each dicho holds a lesson in patience, kindness, or humility. They are passed from one generation to the next because they fit into conversation naturally. Small reminders that never lose their use. To children, they are small puzzles that they'll only fully understand when they're older. As she shapes the tortillas, she uses the moment to teach fairness. When her two youngest begin to argue over who gets the first warm one, she stops and looks at them with a patient face. Without raising her voice, she breaks the tortilla in half and gives each a piece. One who shares never goes hungry, she says simply. The children chew quietly, thinking about her words. The house smells of roasted corn and warm earth. A breeze moves through the open doorway, carrying faint sounds from the street. Vendors calling, the roll of a cartwheel, distant laughter. The mother listens as she works, steady as always. She knows her children will remember not the things she tells them, but the way she lives. When the youngest accidentally spills a cup of water, she reacts calmly. Clean it and start again, she says. No excessive scolding. She believes that love grows stronger when it is patient. In her view, children learn to respect themselves when they are corrected with care instead of fear. In many Mexican homes, this might not be the case. Some mothers might teach with an iron hand or a raised chinelas. Other mothers teach with a balance that outsiders sometimes mistake for hardness. But those who grow up in these houses know better. Kindness can hold more discipline than shouting ever could, as tempting as it might be. The family's rhythm continues. She hums softly while working, an old lullaby her grandmother used to sing. The words don't matter anymore. It's the sound that comforts. The melody moves through the small home, winding between her children. They begin to hum along, their voices small but sincere. As she finishes the tortillas, she explains another saying, Mas sabe el diablo for viejo que por diablo. The devil knows more from being old than from being the devil. Her eldest frowns, trying to make sense of it. The mother smiles and explains, It means that time teaches more than any tricks. The children nod, though she knows the meaning will only settle in them truly after many years. She opens the window shutters to let in more light. The courtyard outside glows white under the sun. Her eldest daughter begins sweeping again, learning that work is not punishment, it's just a way of caring. The broom moves with steady rhythm, and the mother watches approvingly. Small gestures like this show respect for the home and for the family. The mother takes a moment to rest. She wipes her forehead with the edge of her shawl and sits near the doorway, where the air moves freely. The children gather around her again. She knows their attention does not last long, so she keeps her lessons short. When you speak, she tells them, make your words soft. They can grow like seeds, and if you plant hard, painful words, the seeds that grow will end up with thorns and will harm those they grow in. She points towards a small patch of herbs growing near the fence, cilantro, mint, and a single aloe plant. These, she says, are helpers. They heal people when they grow. She tells them how her grandmother once pressed aloe on a burn and whispered a prayer, believing that both plant and words carried the healing power. A faint bell rings from the town square. The mother rises and begins to gather her things, the basket she prepared in advance earlier, and her shawl. It's almost time to go to the market. She hands each child a small task: fold more cloths, pack the basket with anything else they can bring. They move quickly, proud to be trusted with real work. Discipline, she believes, does not come from fear of mistakes, but from the desire to do things with care. Before leaving, she places one more tortilla on the edge of the fire for the household spirits. Outside, the air smells of dust and sunlight. The street ahead is long, lined with small houses, each with its own courtyard and the sound of laughter or work. As they step into the light, the mother looks back at her home once more. Everything is in its place, and everything is bursting with meaning. Her children don't realize it yet, but every movement and every phrase she gives has begun shaping the way they will see the world. The sun sits high when the family reaches the market. The air feels warm, and it's thick with the smell of fruit, corn, and roasted chilies. The streets are alive. Vendors are calling out their prices, children are running between stalls, chicken are clucking in baskets, and there's the low hum of people talking and laughing. It's loud, but in a way that feels like comfort. To the mother, this is not chaos. This is the sound of her community. She walks slowly, her shawl folded neatly around her shoulders, her woven basket hanging from her arm. Her children stay close, each holding a small item they were trusted to carry. The oldest keeps the coins in a little pouch tied tight at the top. The middle child holds a small jar of salt, and the two youngest keep a steady grip on their mother's skirt. These details matter, small responsibilities that teach care and attention. The market stretches across the town square. Each stall is shaded by rough canvas or palm leaves, and every vendor seems to have a rhythm of movement. Some grind corn by hand. Others fan smoke from small fires under clay pots. The smells mix: fried dough, ripe guava, sun-dried herbs, and soap made from lard and ash. Everything glows under the bright light, and the air shimmers faintly with heat. As she walks, the mother greets nearly everyone she passes. Each greeting carries its own tone. Buenos dias, comadre, to an old friend. Dios te bendiga, to an elderly man selling onions. Her words are not just manners. In small towns like this, gestures are small acts of respect, just like greetings are. Ways to keep the threads of trust strong. The children observe her posture, her tone. At the far end of the square, she stops by a stall that sells beans and rice. The vendor is a woman with gray hair braided down her back, who greets her with warmth. They have known each other since her childhood. The two speak in the easy rhythm of old friends, half in Spanish, half in local dialect. The children listen, not fully understanding the mixture of words, but feeling the energy behind them. The mother carefully inspects the beans, holding a few in her hand. Firm and clean, she says softly to her eldest, showing how to check for quality. The lesson is quiet but exact. Never take what looks good from afar, always look closely before agreeing. The vendor laughs when the youngest tries to count the coins out loud. The numbers tumble out in the wrong order, but the effort earns a smile. The mother does not correct harshly, she just takes the child's hand and says, "Despacio, little one. Coins don't run away." The child laughs and repeats the numbers more slowly, and this time gets it right. The vendor pats the child's hair with a big smile, and the mother thanks her. Moving through the rows, they stop by the fruit sellers. Bright oranges, green limes, and red guavas form small mountains on rough wooden tables. Flies buzz lazily, brushed away with bundles of herbs. The mother picks fruit carefully, testing the weight of each in her hand. She tells her children that lighter fruits are usually old, the heavier ones full of juice. Near the center of the market, a man sells handmade clay cups and small figurines. The mother stops to look. Her children press close to the table, eyes wide. The little clay dogs and birds are painted with simple colors, white, brown, and deep red. She allows them to hold one each, but reminds them to do so gently. "These are made with someone's patience," she says. "If you break it, it's not just clay you lose, but their time." The market continues to fill up. Musicians play a short song near the church steps. One man with a guitar, another with a drum made from an old barrel. People stop to listen. The mother rests her basket on her hip and lets her children watch. The song is old, one everyone in the town knows by heart. For her, the music is not just entertainment. It's a reminder that joy belongs to everyone, not only those with wealth. When they finish their shopping, she guides the children towards the shade of a tree near the fountain. They sit to rest. The youngest two eat tamales wrapped in banana leaf, and the mother takes small bites of her own. Around them, the square hums with steady life. A breeze carries the smell of fried masa, soap, and wet stone. As they eat, she explains another quiet truth. The market is like a family, she says. Everyone brings something, and everyone needs something. We give and receive every day. A woman passes by selling flowers, marigolds, roses, and white lilies. The mother buys a few and tucks them into her basket. For the saints, she explains to her children, and for the house to smell sweet. It's common in her village to keep flowers on small home altars, beside a candle or a painting of a loved one. Her children know this, but they like to watch the petals move in the wind. Before they leave the square, she stops by one last stall where an old man sells pieces of paper coated with beeswax. Homemade candles. The man blesses her children softly as he hands her a few. It's not a grand gesture, but a common kindness in places where faith and community are one and the same. When they begin walking home, the road feels quieter. The sun is softer now, the air carrying more shadow than glare. Her children chatter about what they saw. The musicians, the clay dogs, the sweet fruit. The mother listens, smiling faintly. Each story they tell is a sign of learning, of noticing the world with interest and gratitude. By the time their small house comes into view, the light has shifted to a deeper gold. The walls glow warmly, and the scent of evening smoke begins to drift from nearby homes. The mother's basket feels lighter now, not only because the food inside has shifted, but because the weight of the day's lesson has already been shared. By early afternoon, the house settles into a quiet rhythm. The light has changed, softer now, golden near the windows and sharp in the courtyard. The market goods are put away, and the children's voices have faded to murmurs. The mother moves through the house slowly, her steps light and steady. The day's heat presses against the walls, and even the chickens seek the shade. This is the resting hour, the pause between labor and evening. She hangs her shawl on a wooden peg and pours a cup of water from the clay jar. The water is cool from the earth and smells faintly of minerals. She takes small sips and listens to the stillness. Outside, only the hum of insects breaks the silence. The village feels half asleep. Her eldest daughter sits near the doorway, mending a small tear in her dress. The thread is uneven, but the mother does not correct her. She lets her finish, then takes the cloth gently and shows how to loop the needle so the seam holds tighter. The secret is not repetition, she says, but patience. The girl nods. Lessons like this come quietly in the calm of the day. On the table lie a bowl of fruit, guavas and oranges bright against the clay surface. The mother peels one orange and divides the slice among her children. The sweetness brings small smiles. Even in rest, she finds ways to make them feel cared for. When her youngest grows restless, she distracts them with small tasks, folding cloths, sorting beans by color, bringing her the broom. He feels proud to be useful. She knows that teaching work as something peaceful, not as punishment, will stay with him all his life. The house carries the faint smell of ash and clean air. The clay stove has cooled, but a soft gray line of smoke still drifts upwards. On the wall near the door, dried herbs hang in small bundles. They serve both as protection and as a scent. The mother sometimes mixes crushed basil with salt and places it near the threshold to keep away bad energy. Her children accept these things as natural. They are not frightened by the unseen. They just learn to respect both the visible and the invisible. The hours pass slowly. The eldest daughter hums while sewing. The middle child plays with her smooth stones, and the youngest trace shapes in the dirt with their sticks. The mother mends a shirt with careful movements, her fingers quick from years of practice. She thinks of her own mother, who used to sit just like this, telling her stories while fixing clothes by the doorway. The memory warms her, reminding her that these small acts are how women have held families together for generations. A soft wind moves through the open window, carrying the smell of dust and flowers. The mother closes her eyes for a moment and breathes it in. This is her kind of rest. Not sleep, but stillness. She does not often stop to think about herself. Her comfort comes from knowing her family's needs are met, that the house is peaceful and her children are learning how to live well. When one of the children spills water while playing, she looks up but does not scold. She hands the child a rag and says calmly, "We fix what we make messy." The tone is gentle but firm, and so the child obeys quickly. Later, as the afternoon grows hotter, she fans her children with a woven palm fan while telling a short story about her own childhood. She speaks about the first time she learned to make tortillas, how the dough stuck to her hands and it made her cry, and how her mother laughed but made her try again. The children giggle at the thought of their mother as a child. The story ends without a moral lesson, but the meaning is clear. In one corner, a small ceramic bowl holds a few old coins and beads. The children like to play with them, pretending to trade or count. The mother lets them, watching quietly. Through play, they practice fairness and kindness without even realizing it. When one grows upset about losing, she says simply, "Then play again, but this time, try hard." The words are plain, but they guide deeply. By mid-afternoon, the air grows thick and still. The shadows on the courtyard wall stretch long and soft. The mother begins preparing for the evening meal. She moves with calm rhythm, washing rice, slicing onions, and setting aside herbs from the morning market. The children help again, fanning the fire, fetching water, peeling garlic with clumsy fingers. There's no rush. When the food begins to simmer, the smell of garlic and onions fills the house. It drifts into the street, mingling with the faint scent of other homes cooking. Across the wall, a neighbor calls out, asking how her day went. She answers warmly, "Bien, gracias a Dios." The exchange is brief but friendly. Before evening arrives, she wipes the table clean and folds a clean cloth over it. The courtyard glows in soft orange light, and the sound of a faraway bell rings from the church. The children sit near the doorway, eating fruit and talking quietly. The mother watches them and feels peace in the routine. This quiet hour after labor is when love feels most visible. As the first shadows of dusk appear, she gathers the laundry from the line, still warm from the sun. The cloth smells of soap and wind. Folding it neatly, she stacks it by the door. The sound of doves cooing fills the courtyard. The air cools just enough to make the skin prickle. Somewhere nearby, a door closes and someone hums a song. The mother listens to it drift through the air, soft and familiar. Inside her home, the day is slowed to a gentle quiet. She brushes her small children's hair from their foreheads, her fingers moving gently. The house smells of cooked rice and clean linen. For her, this peace is like a prayer made true. As evening settles, the mother lights the small candle on the family's altar. The sun has slipped below the horizon, and the courtyard now glows with soft shadows and the faint orange. The candlelight flickers across a table covered with clean cloth, holding a few simple things: a wooden cross, dried flowers from the last church visit, and a framed picture of her late parents. Beside them, a small bowl of salt and a sprig of basil rest as quiet blessings. The children gather nearby, their chatter fading into silence. They know this part of the day well. The mother crosses herself slowly, her lips moving in prayer. Her voice is low but steady, shaped by years of repeating the same words. Through her prayer follows the Catholic rhythm, small gestures within it belonging to older times. Before finishing, she touches her fingers lightly to the ground, a habit taught by her grandmother. Faith in this house is not rigid. It's a living blend of old and new, of saints and spirits, of prayers and gestures that hold memories older than any church walls. When she lights candles for the Virgin Mary, she also murmurs a few quiet words to her ancestors, thanking them for their strength. After the prayers, she guides her children to wash their hands and faces at the basin. The water feels cool in the dim light. They dry off with a towel that smells of soap and sun. Then the mother begins preparing a simple evening meal of rice, beans, and small pieces of plantain fried in oil. While she cooks, she speaks softly to her children about gratitude. "We thank before eating," she says, "because food is only gained through effort." Her eldest repeats the words out loud, careful to say them exactly right. The younger ones listen, their eyes following the flicker of the candlelight. Gratitude, she explains, is not only for abundance, but also for the ordinary. The fire that burns evenly, the bowl of food that appears every night, the well that gives clear water. On one corner of the stove, a small pot holds a bundle of herbs steeping in water. The mixture smells of ruda and chamomile. She calls it agua de calma. It's meant for keeping the house's energy gentle and for easing the children's sleep. Before bed, she will dab a few drops behind their ears. Her grandmother did the same to her. As the food finishes, she arranges the plates neatly and calls everyone to sit. The table is small, but it feels full. The candlelight makes each face glow softly. The family bows their heads for a short prayer of thanks. When they eat, it's with slow, quiet movements. The mother listens to her children talk about the day, the market, the fruit, the toys they saw. After supper, she clears the table and wipes it clean, while smiling. All those stories were proof that the children are learning to see beauty in the simple things. And now the children also help without being asked. Her eldest takes the plates, the middle grabs the cups, and the younger two bring the small cloth to dry them. Each task fits perfectly into the rhythm of the evening. Once the chores are done, she lights a second candle at the altar. This one is for protection through the night. The flame is smaller, but steadier than before. She lets each child hold a matchstick for a moment, teaching them to respect flames. "Fire is like a dog," she says softly. "If you treat it well and nurture it, it will guard your home. If you abuse it, it will burn you and sting you and harm you." She also takes a handful of coarse salt and tosses a pinch towards the doorway, an old custom said to block envy or bad luck. Then she sets the rest in a small bowl near the altar, where it will stay until morning. Her children watch, curious and attentive. "This is to keep the house peaceful," she explains. As the night deepens, she sits by the window with her sewing. Outside, the moon rises over the rooftops, washing the village in pale silver light. The streets are quiet except for a few distant dogs barking. She can see faint candlelight flickering from other homes, each family keeping their own small devotions. The sameness of it comforts her, knowing others are doing the same gestures, saying the same words. The candle near the altar burns low, leaving a faint smell of wax and smoke, and she feels the same quiet peace she seeks every evening. When she finishes sewing, she lights a new lamp with her dying candle, and the house settles into a warm hush. The mother gathers her children on woven mats near the doorway where the air moves, and she sets the lamp on a small wooden crate. Its flame is steady, and the light pools in a soft circle. Outside, crickets tick in the courtyard, and she knows this is the hour for stories. She begins with the one they always ask for. Her voice stays even and calm. Near the river, she says, people hear a woman crying. The children shift closer, knowing which story this is. She tells them of La Llorona, but she keeps it gentle. Her version warns children to respect water at night and to stay close to family. The tale is sad, but it has no sharp edges. She simply explains that rivers are living places. When her children picture the banks at night, she reminds them to greet the river from a safe distance until daylight. She smooths a blanket over her youngest two and moves to the next tale. On the road, she says, sometimes a rider appears. The children picture the tall hat and the black horse. She describes El Charro Negro as a figure who offers coins to travelers who have been unfair or greedy. If they take the coins, trouble follows. If they refuse, the road seems shorter and the night feels lighter. The lesson lands without any judgment. She tells them clearly that choices made in quiet moments can shape the days that follow. The lamp's flame dips when a breeze enters. The mother shields it with her hand and smiles. She keeps her tone steady and explains that stories are like roads we walk. When you grow, she says, you will know the good road if you have already listened to it. She reaches for a small bowl of warm herbal water on the crate and dips her fingers in it, touching each child's temple. The scent of chamomile rises again. Tonight she adds a lighter story. She speaks of duendes, the little house spirits that hide buttons and kernels of corn. She says they braid the tails of sleeping horses and laugh when people blame one another for lost items. All her children start to giggle. The mother tells them the trick for duendes is to tuck a tiny piece of bread into a corner of the room. A gift, she adds. They play less when they're fed. The children ask to try it, and she nods and says they may leave the bread after they brush their teeth. From a tin box, she takes a narrow red ribbon and ties it around the wrist of the youngest two. For ojo, she explains. In her town, many families protect children this way. Sometimes a small black stone is tied with the ribbon. Hers is simple thread, but it holds the same mindset. She shows the older two how to brush a hand from forehead to chest when praise feels too heavy, a quick motion meant to keep balance. The eldest asks for a story of the lantern walker, a tale the mother heard from her own father. She begins. A quiet man walks the roads at night and helps those who are lost. Some call him a traveler, some call him a saint. She keeps the details plain. A soft step on the dry road, a lantern that does not burn the hand, and a voice that never orders, only points towards home. She pauses to sip water and then shows them the old booklet of paper prayers she keeps wrapped in cloth. Its edges are worn from many hands fiddling it. She lets them touch a page and trace the faded ink with fingers. Words, she says, hold shape even when you whisper them. The lamp throws their shadows long and soft against the wall. Her second child leans into her side and she tells a final short tale. It's about a baker who kept a bowl of dough ready each night in case a hungry person came to his door. Some nights no one came. He baked the extra bread anyway and left it by the church before dawn. Years later, when his own child fell ill, neighbors appeared with food and help before he even asked. The younger two yawn. The mother lifts them and lays them on a folded blanket and tucks them in again. She asks the older two to say one thing they learned. The eldest says, coins can carry trouble. The next one says, rivers need respect at night. She nods and adds, and small gifts keep peace. She closes the tin box, kisses each forehead, and sits quietly so the stories can settle in the comfort of her presence around them. In her village, many mothers do the same. Some use songs, some use prayers. All hope for the same thing. Children who sleep with thoughts arranged. Before she rises, she places a single grain of salt on the windowsill and straightens the broom that leans by the door. The lamplight thins as the oil lowers. The room now smells of chamomile and warm dust. Outside, the crickets keep their steady time, and a soft breeze moves the curtain a finger's width. The mother listens to her children's slow, even breathing for a quiet minute, then cups the lamp's glass with her hand. The flame steadies and the shadows draw close. The next day is a special one, a festival day, and the morning before a festival is always energetic. The mother wakes early again, her hands already busy before the first light reaches the courtyard. The house hums with a different kind of energy, light and fast, filled with quiet excitement. The smell of masa and sweet cinnamon drifts through the air. She moves between tasks with a smooth rhythm, the way she has every year since she was a girl. A large pot of tamales steams on the stove, wrapped in green banana leaves. She checks each one carefully, making sure the folds hold tight. Her eldest daughter sprinkles colored paper confetti over the courtyard, and the younger children chase a stray chicken out of the way, laughing. The mother smiles at the sight. Outside, other homes begin their own preparations. She hears distant laughter, the hollow thump of a drum, the sweep of brooms clearing dust from doorsteps. The village is readying itself together. In post-colonial Mexico, fiesta days blend the sacred and the simple, part church devotion, part community gathering. For this mother, it means more than celebration. It's how her children learn pride, generosity, and belonging. She lays out her family's clothes, pressing each piece neatly with her hands. The girls' blouses are embroidered with red thread, their edges trimmed with lace. Her son's shirts are plain but freshly washed. Her own skirt is dark blue, her shawl wrapped crosswise over one shoulder. When you dress, she reminds them, you show respect for those who work to make the day. By mid-morning, the sound of bells rings from the church. The mother gathers her children and steps out into the street. The air is full of music and color. Strings of papel picado, bright-cut paper flags, flutter overhead, casting soft-moving shadows on the ground. Vendors set up tables lined with sweet breads, peanuts, and clay mugs of atole. Musicians tune their guitars under the shade of jacaranda trees. She walks slowly, greeting neighbors along the way. Buenos dias, she says again and again. The children echo her words shyly. Every greeting, every handshake is a thread that keeps the community whole. Near the plaza, an older woman hands her a handful of marigolds. For the altar later, she says. The mother thanks her, knowing how each small gesture carries history. In the plaza, people gather near the church steps. The priest speaks a few words and the crowd bows their heads. But around the edges, laughter and the sound of children fill the space. Faith and joy mix easily here. Some families bring baskets of fruit as their offerings. Others bring candles. When the prayers end, the celebration turns back to music. A group of men begin to play a son jarocho tune, fast and bright. Women clap in rhythm with it. The mother joins in, her hands moving in gentle beats against her shawl. The children spin in circles around her, laughing, their sandals kicking up dust. After a while, she leads her children away from the music towards the food tables. The smells are rich. Grilled corn brushed with lime, sweet buñuelos dusted with sugar, and thick pozole bubbling in clay pots. She buys each child a cup of atole, a warm drink made from corn and cinnamon. They drink slowly, their faces flushed with heat and joy. She teaches them to thank the vendor with full eyes and a kind word. Later, they walk through the side streets where people hang ribbons on doorways and light small firecrackers. The sharp pops echo off the adobe walls. The children cover their ears and laugh. This balance, letting them feel freedom while keeping them safe, is her quiet art. As the afternoon stretches, the family joins others beneath a wide tree near the edge of town. Someone passes around fresh fruit and a small guitar. The children play in the grass while the adults talk softly, sharing stories. The mother listens more than she speaks, nodding when others tell of the year's harvest or a child's new skill. She pulls from her basket a few tamales and offers them around. Her eldest follows her example, handing one to a neighbor. As sunset approaches, the sky fills with orange and pink. People begin to light candles in small clay holders, lining them along pathways and fences. The mother helps her children place their candles near the courtyard gate when they return home. The flickering lights make the wall glow as if it's breathing. From every direction, the faint scent of smoke, wax, and flowers mixes in the air. Inside the house, she sets the marigolds from the plaza into a glass jar by the family altar. Their scent is bright and clean. She lights one last candle and lets her children watch the flame. The air is cooling now, carrying the smell of dust and candle smoke. Somewhere a neighbor laughs, and another door closes, a dog barks once. She does not need to tell her children what the day meant. They've seen it, the sharing, the greeting, the work behind every joy. Tomorrow life will return to its steady rhythm, but something from the fiesta will stay. The reminder that joy is part of duty, and love is part of faith. The years pass quietly, carried by the same rhythm that shaped the mother's day. The grind of corn, the sweep of the broom, the soft murmur of evening prayers. Her children grow taller, their hands stronger, and their steps more certain. The small home stays the same, walls of faded adobe, a courtyard alive with herbs and chicken, and the same old fogon that warms every dawn. But inside, everything has changed. Her children now do much of the work she once did alone. The eldest daughter takes to sewing with the same patience her mother taught. She mends clothes for the neighbors, her stitches even and firm. The second child, now old enough to go to the market alone, returns with measured steps, greeting every face along the way. The youngest two, who once traced shapes in the dirt, now help each other carry a water jar from the well, their shoulders straight, proud to be able to hold the weight. The mother watches all this from her stool near the doorway, her shawl draped loosely around her shoulders. Her hair is streaked with silver now, and her hands have grown thin, the skin lined with soft creases. When she works the metate, her movements are slower, but the rhythm remains exact. She finds herself speaking less. Her lessons have already taken root. She sees them in how her children move, how they greet the elders, how they sweep without being asked, how they share food even when the portions are small. These actions are her real voice now, echoes of her care living in them. In the evenings, when the courtyard cools, her eldest lights the candle on the family altar. The flame reflects in her calm eyes, steady as her mother's once was. The altar has changed little over time. It still holds the cross, the same faded photograph, and the bowl of salt. But now there are new items too. A sprig of rosemary, a small clay figure the youngest two shaped in school together, and a single corn husk folded like a flower. These are the quiet offerings of a new generation. Sometimes, on quiet afternoons, neighbors still come by for advice or comfort. They sit by the doorway, asking about remedies or old prayers. The mother listens patiently and offers tea made with herbs from her courtyard, ruda for nerves, chamomile for calm. Her voice is soft but confident, still carrying the wisdom of both her faith and her upbringing. On certain evenings, the children, now nearly grown, take over the storytelling. They tell their younger cousins about La Llorona and El Charro Negro, repeating the same words their mother once used. The mother listens from her chair, smiling faintly. The stories have changed slightly, as stories always do, but the lessons remain the same. One night, as a soft rain begins to fall, the family gathers near the window. The sound of drops against the clay tiles fills the room. The mother sits quietly, watching her children laugh together. They are no longer the restless little ones who once needed guidance at every step. They speak with confidence and tease one another gently, and share the same patience she once tried to teach them. She remembers her own mother's courtyard, the same smell of corn and smoke, and the same laughter carried through the walls. Time moves, but patterns remain. As the rain grows heavier, her youngest two offer her a folded shawl. She takes it, smoothing the fabric between her fingers. "You've learned well," she says softly. The children smile, hearing more in the words than simple praise. The next morning, the air smells fresh from the rain. The family moves through their routine with the same quiet order. The mother walks slowly through the courtyard, stopping to touch the herbs she planted years ago. When she returns to her stool, she begins to weave a small basket, showing her eldest daughter how to fold the reeds. Her hands tremble slightly, but her movements remain sure. As the sun sets, the family gathers for supper. The room glows with the same warm light that once filled it when they were small. The mother looks at each of them and feels the quiet pride of a life well lived. She knows her children will keep these ways long after she's gone. These small things that she's taught were repeated with love, and they've become their inheritance. Outside, the air cools, and the smell of burning wood drifts through the village. The mother leans back slightly, her eyes half closed, listening to the sound of her children talking and the crickets singing in the grass. It's enough to see peace, to feel warmth, to know that the ways she taught will continue beyond her hands. The night deepens, but the house feels full of light. In a home like hers, love never had to be spoken loudly. It lived instead in the rhythm of daily life. Through every quiet act, the mother built something stronger than walls or fences. She built a living pattern of care that her children would carry forward long after her hands grew still. Even as the world outside their village grows noisier and faster, these small customs will hold the family steady. Gratitude, discipline, and kindness remain their foundation.